Elon Musk takes on the mavens who complain about hate speech and then can neither define it nor identify it. Good morning, ladies and gentlemen. This is another declaration of truth from your host, Terry A. Hurlbut. And before I go any further, I want to put this out for you. Is Elon Musk polishing an apple on the subject of internet and media censorship? I don't know. But sincere or not, he is calling attention to censorship, not only on social media, but on the part of official government organs. And these aren't the government organs one normally imagines, like the old Soviet wire service, TASS. These are organs of so-called liberal democracies, specifically National Public Radio, NPR, and the British Broadcasting Corporation, the BBC or the Beeb. And by calling them out, Elon Musk has brought the explicit advocates of censorship out of hiding. I want to talk about the NPR case and then about the Beeb case because that case broke wide open yesterday. But first, I do want to shout out to the prime sponsor of this channel, which is Conservative News and Views. Link in the description. And be sure to check out the awesome CNAV Store. Scroll down near the bottom for that link. Lots of great merchandise there, especially this t-shirt that I have chosen for today, which reads, 1984 was not an instruction manual. Well, evidently the unworthies at NPR and the Beeb think it was. Elon has called them on it for whatever reason, and they are squealing like stuck pigs or whining like bullies getting called on the carpet. One more thing. If you like what you're about to hear, you can like this video. You can also click the bell icon to get a notice every time I come out with a new one. In fact, you see the new icon, the heart shape with the US dollar sign in it? That's the super thanks icon. If you really want to keep these videos coming, click that and leave me a tip. Any currency will do, so long as it's legal tender. Now, so what did Elon Musk do first? He took on NPR. He labeled them state-affiliated media. I have links in the description to 7 tweets about this matter. First is Axios tweet quoting NPR as protesting the label and denying that they meet Twitter's published criteria for state-affiliated media. Second, an influencer named Derek Thomas makes much of NPR getting, as he says, 1% of their funding from the government. Sorry, Derek, but when you go lockstep with a leftist administration, you are state-affiliated media. Deep state-affiliated media. Well, Derek and others demanded that Elon take down the label. Not only did he refuse, but he substituted an even more deprecatory label, government-funded media. Well, yesterday Musk pointed out that NPR themselves said that federal funding is essential to public service 10 years ago. The third tweet expands to his pointing that out and saying maybe they wouldn't mind losing federal funding if they don't want people to regard them as a government organ today. We now learn that NPR's correspondents are quitting Twitter in yet another protest. The fourth tweet is from Nick Freitas, a delegate in the General Assembly of Virginia. In the fifth tweet, Elon first quotes someone named Bobby Allen, who says that when he calls NPR government-funded media, he, and I quote, Elon, and I quote, calls into question our editorial independence and questions our credibility, unquote, Bobby Allen, who then predicted, or threatened, a chain reaction among other media organs. What's your reaction, he asked Musk, and Musk replied, defund NPR. Priceless. The last 2 tweets reflect a debate that broke out between an influencer named Brian Krasenstein, who repeated that 1% statement by Derek Thomas, and another user who found the same research Elon had found, namely that at least 10 years ago they were getting 5% of their funding from federal and state governments put together. and they regarded federal funding as essential to their business model. They said it. I didn't. Elon didn't. There you go. We now turn to the Beeb, which seems to have a more strident defender. Early yesterday, Elon Musk took on another target, that being the Beeb, or rather, the Beeb took him on and lost. I have links to 2 tweets that have the setup and 4.5 minutes of the interview. For the setup, Elon Musk said, quote, I said the Beeb could come to Twitter, then, to my surprise, a reporter shows up, unquote, Elon Musk. The next tweet is a key segment from the interview between Musk and James Clayton, technology reporter for BBC North America. Clayton charged that Twitter, since Musk took over, now had more hate speech and anti-Semitic remarks than before. Clayton cited something called the Institute for Strategic Dialogue. Now, hold that thought, I'm going to get to them. But when Elon Musk challenged Clayton to cite a single example of hate speech on Twitter, Clayton could not. Well, that's when Elon said, and I kid you not, so you lied. Whoa. A user named Censored Men tells us, quote, watch the moment Elon Musk confronts BBC reporter James Clayton for not being able to provide a single example of hate speech he has witnessed on Twitter. Elon also points out the Beeb's double standards regarding alleged misinformation concerning the virus that shall remain nameless. That last is a paraphrase, you know that. Several YouTube influencers caught that moment. I have a link in the description to 3 videos by The Daily Caller, The Hill, and Dr. Steve Turley. Michael Shellenberger dropped a thread summarizing the interview and talking more about censorship. I have links to 9 tweets from it. Thread begins. BBC reporter claims there's more hateful content on Twitter since takeover by Elon Musk, but can't give a single example. Amazing exchange. Similarly, a certain think tank claims there's more climate denial on Twitter since Musk took over. And the proof? That Jordan Peterson, Bjorn Lomborg, Alex Epstein, and I, who are not climate deniers, have increased our follower count. The most important thing to know about the members of the censorship industrial complex, beta journalists, yes men, and government bureaucrats, is that they are liars. They denounce any opinion they disagree with as racist, client denialism, transphobic, you name it. Under the old Twitter, the censorship Karens were in charge. They banned Meghan Murphy for saying women aren't men because saying so was deemed hateful. Would you be surprised to learn that the censorship Karens are the most hateful people on the internet? Stop the music. A Karen, in case you have forgotten, is classically a middle-aged woman who complains, probably without warrant, about the quality of service in a store and demands to see the manager right now. More broadly, it is anyone who complains about the least thing that doesn't meet their expectations, whether those expectations have any merit or not, and usually they don't. Now, moving on. The people who claim to be studying hate groups are the most hateful people you'll meet. They hate ordinary people. They view them as the deplorable. The censorship Karens think ordinary people are racist, sexist, transphobic, nature-hating, and must be watched and censored. In reality, the censorship Karens are in the grip of a hateful and racist woke religion, which imagines there is a moral hierarchy organized as revenge for alleged past prejudice, with the most discriminated categories on top. For example, BIPOC. It's grotesque, dehumanizing, and hateful. They even put vengeance in their signs and physically attack their enemies. These are the attacks of the hateful woke. Watch the participants in this hateful Black Lives Matter mob shake their fists and scream at this vulnerable and brave woman who refused to agree to their fascist demands. And yet, is BLM deemed a hate group? Of course not. When you're dealing with psychologically unhealthy and unhappy people, which woke censorship Karens plainly are, it's a good rule of thumb to assume that their negativity is projection. They want to censor others because they are constantly censoring themselves for clout. They are filled with anxiety that somebody will accuse them of racism, sexism, transphobia, client denialism, and so go on the hunt for those things in others. They consciously or unconsciously resent self-censorship and thus denounce those who express themselves honestly and openly. The easiest way for a journalist, university professor, or corporate executive to protect herself from the hateful woke mob is to be hateful herself. What results from this sick cult politics is a sick culture. Sick PMC, whatever that means, and sick institutions is a pathocracy. What drives wokeism is hatred, and so the only real antidote is love. Love of life, love of humans, and love of civilization. That includes loving human health and psychological health and rejecting victimhood ideology. Elon did the right thing when confronted by a journalist catastrophizing woke narrative. He asked the man to be specific. When the man couldn't be, Elon pointed this out. That's what a good therapist does. That's what we can do with ourselves, with cognitive behavioral therapy. We should be grateful to the BBC journalists and Elon for sitting down together and talking. We need more of that human, in-person interaction. Together, we can overcome hateful wokeism with love, dialogue, and CBT. P.S. Consider the thought patterns proved to cause depression, catastrophizing, black and white thinking, fortune-telling, and emotional reasoning. Sound familiar? They are what the woke and climate alarmists do every day. They are literally making people depressed, anxious, hateful. P.P.S. What was the Beeb's hateful accusation based on? This report by the Institute for Strategic Dialogue, which counts as plausibly anti-Semitic, the following tweet. Yeah, because it's impossible to overthrow a criminal WEF/Soros puppet. The report debunks itself. Garbage in, garbage out. ISD is desperate to regain its prior power to censor its political enemies behind the scenes. They write something like what he embedded, and then turn around and claim, oh no, we weren't censoring anyone, we were just doing research. Wah! That's the current lie being peddled by Mehdi Hassan, Rene DiResta, who goes by the handle No Upside, and other people. You've heard me mention Rene DiResta before. Shellenberger's first thread ends here, but he mentioned the ISD, so I might as well quote you their thread. Before I do, I want to shout out to a sponsor who can really help you through the economic storms to come. That sponsor is oursilverlines.com. Do you feel like you're working harder for your money just to get by? You are not alone. The fluctuating economy, employment issues, and unexpected changes in life have left many families struggling over the past few years. Collecting gold and silver can help shield you against many of these challenges. But if you're like me many years ago, you don't know where or how to start. Our Silver Lines helps by connecting you with thousands of members who are learning the secrets to creating and protecting true wealth by collecting precious metals. Whether you just want to collect rare and unique coins or take advantage of the business opportunities this company provides, either way, they can help you learn to live an exceptional life. Visit oursilverlines.com to learn how you can build a legacy for your future. And now, the thread by the Institute for Strategic Dialogue. Strategy for what? They never say. Thread begins. ISD's research on hate speech and extremism on Twitter. was referenced in James Clayton's interview with Elon Musk, a thread on our findings and others. Our study with Chasm Technology found, using a robust methodology that is laid out in the report, a sustained doubling in English language anti-Semitic speech since Musk took over Twitter. In the period since Musk's Twitter acquisition, our study found that the rate of creation of anti-Semitic accounts tripled. Engagement with anti-Semitic content remained steady, despite promises to deboost and demonetize hate speech. The study did also find that an increased proportion of anti-Semitic content appears to have been taken down since Musk took over. However, this has not kept pace with the absolute increase in anti-Semitic content on the platform. Studies like this will become harder with upcoming changes to Twitter's API, shutting out substantial sections of civil society from data access. If Musk is confident Twitter is improving, he should be willing to have that independently verified. Musk asked the Beeb to provide examples of hate speech on Twitter. Perhaps one way of demonstrating why the problem is perceived to have worsened is the presence of verified accounts, which are explicitly white supremacist. Another openly National Socialist, i.e. a neo, account is documented as boasting that it has now been verified by Musk's Twitter Blue program. A recent Washington Post analysis of Twitter's recommendation algorithm that followed extremists, identified by the Southern Poverty Law Center, found that Twitter is amplifying hate speech in its For You timeline in an echo chamber-like effect. Oh, by the way, the reference to Southern Poverty Law's account, for some reason it didn't resolve, but it should have. The account is still active. I typed it in and it came up. In November last year, ISD also spoke to the Washington Post about a 69% increase in Islamic State accounts since Musk took over Twitter. While Elon Musk's Twitter safety has provided its own assessment of hate speech on the platform, which is substantially more sanguine than most others, we articulated substantial concerns about this methodology at the time. And here's where they embed the anchor tweet of their earlier thread in which they accused Elon Musk of whitewashing hate speech. And what do they mean by that? Listen. The Twitter safety team's study uses slurs as a proxy for prevalence of hate speech, removing these apparently used in non-hateful contexts. Much hate is conveyed without typing common slurs, including veiled and targeted harassment and abuse, images and videos, deliberate misspellings, rarer slurs, and more. A more robust methodology would use machine learning to classify hateful rhetoric that includes some or all of the above. While no method is perfect, blunt approaches oriented entirely around the use of keywords will miss things and cannot be the sole solution employed by platforms to moderate harmful activity. Details of the methodology have not been released. There is therefore no capacity for independent scrutiny. If Twitter is confident that these findings are robust and that they indicate improvement, they should have no issue in allowing third-party assessment. It is important to measure impressions and engagement to understand how far hate is spreading. However, this is not the whole story. For example, hate targeted at a single person requires only one impression to have impact. This is another way Twitter's methodology is incomplete. Independent analyses have found that hate speech on Twitter is becoming more prevalent. This is also the felt sense of many on the platform. More recently, ISD and Chasm have shown a sustained doubling in anti-Semitism using a robust methodology. We are calling on Twitter to release the methodological details of this study for independent assessment and to resume good faith engagement with third parties to understand and tackle hate on the platform. And which third parties are they? Seesaw, maybe? Well, Michael Shellenberger told them right off in his second thread. Thread begins. Please keep an eye on this organization. Follow them. They are working to censor Jordan Peterson, Bjorn Lomborg, Alex Epstein, and me. They are spreading lies about us to news media and social media platforms around the world. They are creepy and dangerous. Mike Benz could share more on them. You can build resilience to protect yourself from disinformation spread by censorship Karens like ISD by asking questions like this one. What counts as anti-Semitic? Does criticism of the George Soros Foundation count, for example? Questions for ISD. Is it hateful to point out that the censorship Karens are funded by Burisma, meaning the Ukraine gas company? The fascists at ISD are literally working with Greenpeace to try to censor Jordan Peterson, Bjorn Lomborg, Alex Epstein, and me. Here are the censorship Karens who never interviewed any of us and refused to be interviewed by us and are too cowardly to debate. Now, the embedded photograph is of 5 ISD ranking executives. They publish report after report that they then send to the Beeb and other journalists demanding that they participate in their smear campaign. Now they are trying to smear Elon Musk and Twitter for supposedly allowing anti-Semitism and hateful conduct, which James Clayton and the Beeb uncritically repeated. Didn't bother reading the garbage ISD report before citing it, did you, James? End of thread. I have further links to 2 tweets in reaction to all this. In one user pointed out that the ISD has State Department funding. In reply, someone else asked whether it is lawful for the United States government to contract work they are not allowed to do themselves. Spoiler alert, they aren't. Remember the case of Missouri versus Biden. Another accused them of lying about protests against the lockdowns attendant upon the virus that shall remain nameless. Case in point, the Ottawa Freedom Convoy. In fact, her tweet and the one of hers to which it is a reply both have embeds to earlier threads by her. Now, my analysis. An apple polisher is classically a pupil who curries favor with his teacher with showy, manipulative displays of loyalty. More broadly, it is one who curries favor with any others who, through such displays, which typically are insincere. Is Elon Musk polishing an apple? I'm not prepared to say that, but I've noticed that he still has troublemakers among the moderators, or else an algorithm that he ought to repair. Nor has he decided to settle Laura Loomer's RICO lawsuit against Twitter. Understand this, though. I have no brief for anyone who calls himself a National Socialist anything. Not only is that socialistic by its very name, but also I do not approve of generalizing about people using characteristics that they legitimately cannot change. Nevertheless, Elon Musk has called attention to the censorship at and the liberal bent of 2 government-funded organs. Again, these are organs of so-called liberal democratic governments. Yet they definitely behave like the old Telegrafnoye Agentstvo Sovietsky Soyuz, TASS, literally the Soviet Wire Service. And the only reason the Russian Federation Wire Service still calls itself TASS today is historic. And like bullies, these people don't like to see someone call them out. Will the Beeb quit Twitter, as NPR has threatened to do? Stay tuned. Whatever their decision, Elon Musk has done the world a service this week. Links in the description of the article, to the 7 tweets about the NPR kerfuffle, to the setup and interview between Elon and James Clayton of the Beeb, to those 3 YouTube videos highlighting the interview, to Michael Shellenberger's first thread, to the ISD's recent thread, to the ISD's older thread, Mike Shellenberger's second thread warning people about them, to those 2 tweets giving other perspectives on who these busybodies are, to my Declarations of Truth Twitter account, and to Conservative News and Views. I've also left links to the awesome CNAV Store and our silverlines.com, as I also mentioned. You know already about how to like a video, turn on notifications, and leave a tip. On the end screen, I'm going to leave a subscribe link to my channel and links to all 3 of those videos that I mentioned from Daily Caller, The Hill, and Dr. Steve Turley. This is Terry A. Hurlbut delivering another declaration of truth and reminding you to let the truth set you free.